Alrighty, welcome everyone to this afternoon's research and HDR workshop. We're talking about patents. So we're trying to work out how you find them and all the ins and outs and bits and pieces about patents. So with me today, I have Fiona Jones, who is one of our teaching research liaison librarians, and myself, I'm Nicole Gammy. I'm actually one of the research liaison librarians, and I'm based here at Callaghan, while Fiona is between Ourimbah and Gosford. So before we commence with the interesting chat about patents this afternoon, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land within our footprint areas, the Awabakal, Darkinjung, Biripi, Worimi, Warrawoona and Eora nations. We also pay respect to the wisdom of elders past and present, and I would like to extend this acknowledgement and pay my respects to any Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today or will be listening to the recording. So what are we going to cover today? So we're going to explain what a patent actually is, because there's a little bit of, I guess, challenges with the definitions and it can get confused with other forms of protection. The coverage of them, if you're thinking about publishing, how patents and publishing fit together, doing a little bit of interpreting of patents. We're going to do some referencing. We're going to explain a little bit about searching. Then Fiona's going to do a live demonstration of some of the databases that you can find patents in. And finally, we'll wrap up with some help. So before we get started into that, I just wanted to mention if the HDR's researchers or academics have any questions about patents, please contact your relevant research liaison librarian. We're all listed on the page here. There are 4 of us. There's the 2 Nicoles, Jennifer and Jessica. So please have a look at the schools and then contact the relevant person in terms of who would provide you with support. If you're a coursework student, you're welcome to still get in touch in relation to that. But probably the best way to go for you is to use the Book a Librarian service if you're having some challenges in terms of finding the patents that you're after. Alrighty, so the $1 million question is, what is a patent? Basically, they provide legal rights that is granted to an inventor. They cover inventions, not ideas, so you need to be a bit careful about there is definite distinction there. They provide exclusive commercial rights, meaning that you can sell them or use them in a way that you would like to. So the idea of the types that they protect a device, a substance or a process, and they can be a preliminary one, so you can do a little bit more work if you would like, or they can be a standard one in terms of that you've got something and you want to protect it here and now. Generally, the standard patent provides 20 years of protection in terms of the ideas for that particular invention. Big thing is that not everything can be patented. So things like business methods, not so much. You probably need to look at another option in terms of that. But if it's a physical device or a physical form, then there's a good chance that it will be covered by a patent. So for computer-based inventions, they can be protected under patents. So certainly if you've got coding or a program, that sort of thing. Also thinking about circuit layouts, there's also rights in relation to those particular things. Another interesting but slightly strange one, left field one, microorganisms. If you happen to meet the criteria, you can actually patent your microorganism. So in terms of thinking about some examples, the well-known examples here in Australia. The first one, which we all love to hate some days, is in 1996, Cite invented what they called in those days Wi-Land, or more commonly known today as Wi-Fi. So this led to about $340 million of revenue for Cite, and it's based on their work with radio astronomy and radio waves to move data around indoor environments. So another thing we need to think about too, or another example is the spray-on skin that Fiona Wood and Maria Stoner developed to help burns victims, and it was commercialised. It has been commercialised by Avita Medical. So one that we kind of missed, but was also an Aussie invention, was the black box flight recorders. But that was done back in the 1960s, in the days when we didn't think that we were going to actually need a lot of this sort of stuff. So the airline network wasn't what it is today. So the big thing about patents is it needs to be a new aspect or an upgrade to a previous device or substance. So for example, with the Wi-Fi that I just mentioned, there has been some additional patents lodged in relation to that, but that's been an upgrade to the original technology. So in terms of mentioned the timeframes, we're talking about then the 20 years that they cover. So you do need to be careful that they do actually run out. So the other thing to think about too is with patents, unlike other forms of potentially forms of protection, they're lodged on a country basis. So unlike other things that might be granted more uniformly, you actually need to apply for a patent at a country level. So it would be Australia, the US, tends to be Europe wide as opposed to individual countries over there, but you do need to think about. So that's important when you're looking at like searching for patents, which we'll talk about in a little while, in terms of where it's going to be lodged. So where is the market for the product that you're developing or wanting to protect or wanting to search about? Think about where that will actually be. So as I said, it doesn't cover discovery, methods, theories, for things like maths and science, performance, artistic work, plant or animal varieties, and methods of medical treatment or diagnosis. You need to look at other forms of intellectual property protection, which is what we're talking about here today. So copyright might be a more appropriate thing. For plant varieties, is actually you can get breeder patents. So that's how we get our wheat, barley, and oats, and among other things, the new varieties of those, so we can keep eating what we enjoy to do. In terms of some things, there can be a little bit of variation for the time. As I mentioned, while it's often the standard patent is 20 years, sometimes for things like pharmaceuticals and those sorts of things, you can actually get a longer basis that you can actually protect. So before you apply, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on, you actually need to check multiple websites. It's not like other things where you can simply check one place and you find out absolutely everything about this. You actually will need to apply or have a look through and just make sure that you're not applying for something that has already been protected. Okay. So if your research or your potential patent is the result of research, please make sure that you patent first and then publish, largely because what happens is that once it's out in the public realm, and what we mean by that is in the public domain, so it could be a printed application, a mention on social media or any other format, then it's very hard to protect your idea. Patents themselves won't stop publishing. They're more likely just to delay it rather than anything else. And getting a patent is not necessarily a quick process and very much a legal process. So you do need to make sure that you get good advice and good information about doing that. There's plenty of information about that sort of thing on the IP Australia website. Alrighty, let's have a look at the Evel Knievel of searching. As I just mentioned, because we've ended up with legal components, we need to think about, and I mentioned earlier too, about where they apply. So you need to think about what countries and so therefore what databases are actually worth considering. There is overlap and there are things that can help you out. So another thing too is they can be like if they're successful, else that sort of thing, you need to make sure that they haven't actually expired, because with that time frame, some things may not actually survive the long term for that. Also think about your search terms, because when you're looking, what you might think is an ordinary search term may not actually be what has been used to do to label that particular patent. So you might need to think a little bit more laterally. And there are a couple of ways which I'll show you in a sec in terms of some of the places that you can have a look to give you some ideas about search terms, another way to go. With any claims, what we're talking about here is it's those unique elements. So that also might be something that you're having a look at in terms of thinking about your search stuff. One nice thing is that if you are following some patents, certainly here in Australia, what you can actually do is get a notification service. Basically, what this means is that you can be notified if any of the patents that you're interested in keeping an eye on, if there's any changes to those, so if they've made any additions to them, or tweaked something or added something to things, you can actually get a notification of those changes actually happening. And on the websites too, you are certainly the Australian ones, you've actually got the ability to save searches. So you can have a look now and then come back later and then follow that up should you need to. Okay. So a little bit more on the searching. So I mentioned a couple of things that can be actually quite helpful. So we actually have, or what they've developed now is, because they've worked out that it's not the easiest thing to do to find some patents in some cases. So what they've actually done is they've developed an international patent classification. So this can help you again with some of your search terms in terms of actually working out some of that stuff. And this falls under the umbrella of the Patent Cooperation Treaty. So rather than being very much you having to use different terms potentially in different jurisdictions, the US is talking to Europe and talking to other places in around the world to try and get some standardization of things to make life easier for those of us who need to actually find some of these things. Alrighty, so the other $1 million question I had, which was interesting because it was a student query in the not too distant past, was about referencing. And the question they had was, they actually had a patent, but the thing is it had been applied in a couple of different jurisdictions. So the first thing I suggested, and after I asked what sort of specific referencing style that they used, was to provide them with this. This is an example of how you would reference a patent in APA. I also suggested that they consider the audience in which their item, in this case it was going to be a thesis, would end up where it was going to end up. So this one in particular was going to end up in Nova. So it's an open access resource available to everyone. So what I suggested, because someone from overseas might end up reading this item, that they add details to a paragraph in the methodology section about the patents, or add it as a note in an appendix to say where the patent had been submitted, largely so anyone chasing it up could see that the patent had been they'd put an application in a range of different places for this that particular item. So it's not easy because often you do come across those sorts of things as well. So with that, I am going to hand over to my colleague Fiona. So we're going to have a look through to run through a demonstration. So in particular, this afternoon, we're going to have a look at the Australian system, which is AusPat, Patent Scope, which looks a US-based one. And then we've also got a couple of databases, which as students and academics, you have access to, which have patents in them. So you've got SciFinder, and then you've also got SciVal. So with that, I will stop my share and allow Fiona to take over and do the demonstration.
Thanks very much, Nicole. I will try to highlight some of the things that Nicole's already spoken about as we're searching, so you can see them in situ, and hopefully they will make a little bit more sense to you. So the first one we're going to do is the Australian patents, and we land on this sort of landing page which does an acknowledgement of country and has a little disclaimer that you have to agree to before you can get into your searching. Now you can see at the top there's a quick search, a structured search and an advanced search. So there's 3 different options for searching, and the quick search is what it's defaulting to on this page. So I'm just going to start off with that and show you an example search so you can see what the search results look like. I'm going to start off by searching for the University of Newcastle because I'm interested to see what Australian patents come up that have the University of Newcastle in the record. So you can see that it's generated 367 results, and we can start browsing through the list of results here. The first thing I want to show you is that these columns that we have in our search results can be customized. So I can tick this and then I can add a different column if I want to be able to see that in my search results. So for this example, I'm going to be looking for Australian patents that have also been applied for internationally. So they also have a World International Patent Office number. So this WIPO number, I'm going to stick that in there and I'm going to save the changes. So nothing, we can't see anything in that column now. So I'm actually going to sort by that column. So any of the columns that you want to sort by, you can just click on them to make that happen. So that has updated my results. Let's just click it again. There we go. So I'm starting to now see a list of patents that have applicants as the University of Newcastle and have been applied for internationally as well. And I'm interested actually in conveyor belts. That's my invention. It's something to help, advance conveyor belt technology. And so I can see that this one is one that was filed in 2020. I can see here there's another one by a lot of the same people at the university that was filed also in 2020. And I can see here there's something else about conveyors. So I can go ahead and select any that I'm interested in and add them to my list. You can also see here that there's information about the application status. So this is one that has lapsed, and then if they're expired and so forth, that would appear in that column as well. So I'm just going to go to my list now, and I've got 3 patents in my list, and I can actually download a report in PDF format or CSV format, whichever I like. I'm just going to look at the PDF. I'm going to open that up so we can see what's in here. So it's just a brief summary of those patents that I am interested in. And because Nicole mentioned the International Patent Classification, the IPC, is a really good way of finding patents that are about the same topic. I noticed that this B65, etc., is the same IPC for both of those. So I'm just going to copy that because I might use that for another search. I'm just going to go back to my search results page. I'm going to clear that list because I've already downloaded that. And I'm just going to click on the application number of the first one to have a look at the full details you can see here. It works like an accordion. You can open up here and see more information. So this one here tells you a little bit more about the IPC and how it's changed slightly for different versions. And this e-dossier is an interesting part because here is where you can see a number of the different publications that go with it. So the claims, we'll just have a little look at this one. It's quite interesting. So you can see these are the claims that they're making. This is what makes this invention different to other conveyor belt things that have been previously invented. And there's a number of other documents that are available there. Down here in the publication history section is where you can actually see the full patent document. So this is what a full patent document looks like. It's quite a dense document, a little bit confusing to look at, I think, but you can see at the top we've got the inventors, and you can see the university is part of that there. You can see the diagram and much more detail here other applications that are related to it, what field, and so forth. We won't look at all of that in more detail now. At the bottom of the page here, subscribe to notification service is where you can click that and actually be notified if there are any changes or updates to this patent. So that's the quick search. Now I'm going to click here on structured search and show you how this is a little bit different. So in this one, it allows us to search in specified fields of the record for the patent so that we can drill down and be a lot more focused in our search. So for instance, if we want to use the IPC mark that we copied before from that other patent, so that one that's something to do with conveyor belts, we can pop that in there and do a much more targeted search. And you can see that it helpfully tells us ahead of time how many search results we'll get from that. Now, in addition to this, I'm going to look and see if any of those have something to do with a coupling system, because that's my new invention to go on the conveyor belt. So I'm just going to want to look in actually the text of the abstract to see if they mention the word coupling. And you can see that it's grayed out. It says full text only. If we want to search in one of those fields, we have to click this include full text, and then we can select the abstract here, and I can put coupling. Oops, helps if I can spell. And you can see that I'm going to get 3 results. So I'm going to go ahead and search that and have a look. So you can see that there's one that's expired, there's one that is ceased, and there's one that is granted. So I may want to look at this one in more detail. So then I would click on this application number to see all that detail I showed you before, which I'm not going to do again now. There is an advanced search as well. I'm not going to demonstrate that one today because that one requires you to put together your search kind of like code. You've got to know what the field codes are. You've got to put your terms in the right order, and it's quite complicated. So we're not going to look at that today. So I'm going to move on now to looking in a international search. So this is the WIPO IP portal search, and here they have a number of different ways. Oh, sorry, I clicked the browse. A number of different ways to search as well. So you can see they've got simple, they've got advanced, they've got field combination, and so on. I'm going to show you field combination, which is very similar to what I just, oh, it's not happy. Let's just refresh that. Okay, so this one is quite similar to the one that I just showed you, the structured search. So you can see here, it's actually got a number of fields already kind of selected, but you don't have to use those. And if you want to change what it is, you use the drop down to choose something else. So on the front page, so kind of the summary page, I'm going to put my word coupling. And then here for the next one, I want to put the IPC number in, the classification number. So I'm just going to use all classifications, and hopefully I've still got that. Yes, I did still have that copied, so I can paste that in. So this is basically the same search I did in the Australian one, but in the international one. So let's just have a look and see. And you can see it's already telling us we're going to get 137 results. So we're getting many more. We only had 3 when we did it in the Australian search because this is covering many more countries. So again, we can see some detail. It's just presented a little bit differently, but again, we can click on the number, which is hyperlinked, and we can actually see more detail. It's arranged differently than it was on the Australian site. So this one, it has the different pages, I guess, across the top, the different tabs. And so, for instance, if you wanted to look at all the documents, you can go ahead there to the end there, and this has got them in a zip file that you can download. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. I'm just going to pause for a moment, Nicole, just to check if we have any questions.
No, there's no questions so far.
Okay, thank you. So the next thing I'm going to show you are a couple of databases. So what I should have mentioned is the Australian patent search and the international patent searches that I've shown you are freely available online websites. Anyone can search and look in them. But what I'm going to show you now are a couple of library databases that you know, not everyone gets access to. They're only available if you have a subscription to them, like the library does, but they include patent information, and just looking at it from a different perspective, and I think it will be helpful. So how I'm going to get to them is from this A to Z databases list on the library website, and I've just selected S because both of them happen to start with S. So I'm going to start with SciFinder N. I want to point out that SciFinder N is a little bit different to some of the other databases that we subscribe to. You actually have to register for a personal account before you can use it. So it kind of has two layers of security. It has the layer where you've got to log in to show that you're part of the university, but then you've actually got to log into your personal account as well. So if you are going to have a go at SciFinder N, you need to use this link to create an account first. Once you've got an account, you can go through there. So I'm just going to have to sign in. So this is what I mean by the first layer, to show that you're part of the university. And then it should ask me to sign into my account. Yep. Okay, so if you're doing research in chemistry, chemical sciences, molecular sciences, biomedical sciences, medical fields, this is a really great database to use for any of those sort of subject areas. And it actually allows you to search across specific chemical substances. It lets you search for reactions. References just means journal articles and patents and other literature. Suppliers, if you want to actually buy certain chemicals, biosequences, and it has this retrosynthesis section, so working out how to synthesize a certain chemical that you need, how you can actually build that in the lab. So it's a really excellent database. The query here, which we're just going to search across everything, we can use natural language, we can use any keywords we want, we can put substance names in, we can even click here and draw a chemical element or compound using the drawing. But I'm just going to put in here gold nanoparticles. So I'm not thinking about conveyor belts anymore. Now I've got a new invention, which is going to be a drug delivery method using gold nanoparticles to be able to deliver specific drugs to my patients. So that's the thing that I'm interested in. And you can see here that we've got 11 different substances, and it's actually showing you them on this front page. No reactions have come up because we didn't mention gold nanoparticles and anything else. But the references section is the section we're really interested in, and we've got stacks. So we could obviously modify our search to make it a little bit better so that we've got less results. But I'm not going to worry about that now because I just want to use this search to show you where the patents are. You can see here we've got filters on the left-hand side like lots of databases do, and the first filter is the document type, and you can see that patents is a choice there. So if I select that, the database is just going to update my results list to just show me patents. And there are many other filters that we can go ahead and use. So, you know, if we only want to see ones that are in English language, we can add that one as well, and various other filters. But for now, let's just have a look and see what's going on here. So if you just want to see the full patent, so let's find one that looks useful. So this one is talking about the transport and delivery of glutathione into human cells using gold nanoparticles. That's similar to what my invention does. So I can click here on patent pack, and in this case, there's just one US patent. Sometimes there's a number that have been granted in various different jurisdictions. You can see that I can see just a plain old PDF, PDF that's annotated, so either of those I can download, or I can click on this viewer and it will open in a new tab in my browser for me to view in. And so this, I'm sure you can see, looks quite similar to the patent that we looked at before in, I guess, the layout of it, the diagrams and so forth. And but the thing that SciFinder adds, the value they add to just going to WIPO to search for that, or the US Patent Office, is the analyst has actually marked up in here where different substances appear. So that's why it's so useful if you're working across the chemical sciences. So for instance, if you're looking specifically for where a certain element is referred to in the patent, you can just go straight to it and it's been noted for you there. So that is kind of cool. Let's just click on the full record here. Is the other thing that is interesting here is that you can click this Get Prior Art Analysis. So one thing, if you were applying for a patent, one thing you have to do is you actually have to do a thorough search of anything that's already out in the public domain that is related to your invention. So you have to find if there are any journal articles, if there are any other published materials, you know, images, drawings, or things testing what your invention is. You actually have to include that in your patent application. So this one will actually run a search for you for other literature about this particular patent and will email it to you afterwards. That's one of the benefits of the fact that you've got to create your own personal account in this database. Your email address is linked to it, and so that's really useful. The other thing that is great in here is that any of the substances that are listed in the patent, you can just click straight through to more information about that. So if you need more information about gold, maybe perhaps it's different properties, because that might be important in your invention to know certain, you know, melting point or some properties, you can click straight through and get that information. And the other thing you can do is you can find here articles that cite this patent. So if there are researchers working in this field and they've actually cited this patent in their articles, you can go ahead and click here and it will take you through to those articles in a list here. So, and these ones can be exported to EndNote or another bibliographic referencing software as well if you want to do further reading. So recommend, if that's an area that you're researching in, this is a really great database for you. Now, the last one that I wanted to demonstrate is another database called SciVal. And this is actually, it's funny that it is the case, but this is another one that you actually have to create an account for as well. So we have a subscription to it, but you actually have to create your own account to be allowed to use it. So I'm just going to go ahead and log into my account. So this tool, this database is actually a tool for evaluating and benchmarking researcher performance. So it's one, as a researcher, you'd be interested in exploring whether or not you're going to be using patents at all. It's a really great way of identifying trends in research as well, and for identifying potential collaborators. So very, very helpful tool to get your head around, and your research liaison librarians can sit down with you and show you how it works. It's got a number of modules. So we've got overview, benchmarking, collaboration, and trends. I definitely don't have time to go through all of them today. So we're just going to have a quick look in the overview module. Now, in the overview module, you've got different ways that you can look at things. So you can look at a particular institution or groups of institutions. So you can look at specifically the University of Newcastle, or a group of Australian universities, that sort of thing. So that's the first one. You can look at specific people or groups of people, so researchers that are all researching in a certain order. You can look at a set of documents, so you can upload or use the other search functionality in the database to create a set of publications and then do some analysis on them. You can look at specific countries, regions, or other places, but the one we're going to look at here is topics and clusters, and you can see that it's already selected because I was looking at it recently, this gold nanoparticle nanomedicine topic, just so I can show you what sort of information you can get here. If you are a researcher working in that area and you think you've got kind of an invention up your sleeve that is using these gold nanoparticles. There are a number of different tabs across here. So because I've previously told this database that the University of Newcastle is my home institution that I'm interested in, it always gives me some information about the university as well. So actually, in this topic area, so papers that have been tagged with this topic code, there's only one that's come out of the University of Newcastle, but it's performed very, very well in terms of citations. It's performed 650% better than the average. So that's really good. It's got 62 citations already. But here is some more detail about Australia. There's 72 papers in this topic area. Asia Pacific more, and worldwide more, and you can see citation counts and so forth. And there's a lot of interesting information. So collaboration will tell you what percentage of the papers in this topic area show collaboration within an institution, between other institutions in the same country, or international collaborations between institutions in different countries. All sorts of things. The thing that I want to show you is over here, patent impact. So this will show you whether there are patents that are citing the research literature in this topic, or whether there are articles in here that are citing patents. So both ways around. And it's really interesting to see, you know, what new patents are coming out in this field and who is maybe citing them, who are the researchers working in that same field, so that you can perhaps target them as potential collaborators for you. So I'm just going to look here at the citing patents. So this is giving me a full list of the 40 patents that have cited documents that are in this topic area. So you can see what patents are being developed that researchers in this area of gold nanoparticles and nanomedicine are working in. And if you find one in here that you're really interested in, then you can click here and it will actually show you the full list of all those publications. That was a whirlwind trip around those databases. I'm just going to stop sharing and let Nicole wrap up the session.
Terrific. Thank you very much for that, Fiona. Rather interesting. I'm thinking like also with SciFinder, and one of the bonuses of it is that you could, if you find something somewhere else, you want to know more about the chemistry of something, because that's something you might want to just check a few things. That's another, you could then go back and have a look through for, in terms of a reverse way to do that as well. So that's a nice little opportunity there to, I guess, to use it a bit better or to use it more fully. All right, so what I'd like to do is we've had a look at the demonstration. So in terms of where to from here, so if you are looking for a little bit more help, suggestion that you ask your colleagues might be amazing, what they might be able to help you with, or think laterally about maybe some search terms or places to look, or people who've been interested in that. Please check the websites in terms of just having a bit of a go to see what you can find yourself. There is a library guide in terms of places that you can find it, and as Fiona has shown you, there's places, other databases and things that might be able to help you with your searching. Then you can go back and check things like the IP Australia website and Patent Scope is, again, just to make sure that you've got everything. And also please talk to your research liaison librarians. They can help you out in terms of helping with some of the search terms and maybe thinking a little bit laterally or asking you a heap of questions to help identify other possibilities in relation to what you might be looking for. So we would love some feedback. So even for those who are listening to the recording, please do get in touch if you have any feedback about this particular webinar, or there's another topic that you would like to see us cover. We're more than happy to do that. And just finally, the Patents Workshop is one of a series. So for the next couple of weeks, we're talking copyright. So the first one is getting copyright right in your research. So making sure that everything's okay above board and your ideas and your IP is being protected in that particular way. And then we had a request looking at things like, now that the world's opened up again, and we're all grateful for that, if you're going to a conference or you're putting a poster or a paper together, what considerations might you have from a copyright perspective in those sort of situations? So please, if you're interested in copyright, the next couple of Thursdays we'll cover that. Then following that, we're going to talk about neuro and how you might be able to maximize your profile. So Fiona mentioned things like evaluating sort of research performance and that sort of thing. This is a way through neuro to actually have all your publications listed on the university website. So please come along if you've got any questions about neuro. We would be happy to take them on the day. And another one in terms of, which is a little bit related to some of the stuff that we talked about today in terms of that searching aspect, and really important if you're doing some of these sorts of things, is how to replicate a search strategy across multiple databases. So certainly for those who are undertaking systematic or scoping reviews, which patents may or may not come as part of that, it can be really helpful because the databases don't all talk the same language, and you might need to work out how you get someone to talk to someone else to find what's in those databases. So please, if you're interested in any of those, register. And if not, if you're unable to make it, we can send you out a recording following the session. So thank you very much for coming along today, and all the best with your studies. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with the library if we can help you out. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again in the future.